Hello, my name is James Johnson, and I am interpreting the poem "A Bronzeville Mother Loiters in Mississippi. Meanwhile, in Mississippi, a mother burns bacon." So, in this poem, I am doing the last 30 lines of this very long poem. It's kind of a ballad to Emmett Till, and right as I'm starting, where I'm going to be annotating and interpreting this poem, there is a shift from kind of this fairy tale world that she's imagining to her waking up to a realization of what's actually going on in the real world. A little bit of context of this poem is it was made in the 1960s in a series of work called The Bean Eaters. This was around the civil rights era, and this was kind of a jumping point for the civil rights era, was the death of Emmett Till. So my interpretation for this poem is, as the Mississippi mother relives the event, she becomes disgusted by her husband, and she understands just the atrocities that her husband did for her. And I'm going to tell this and show my interpretation through imagery, specifically a lot of visual imagery that I noticed in the poem, some fairy tale diction, as well as a few other types of diction that she employs periodically throughout the poem, and her style through a lot of her works that we as a class have studied. So first, I'll be looking at imagery. So she uses a lot of visual imagery to show this awakening that this Mississippi mother has as she is reliving all the situations. So right here, that red ooze was seeping, spreading, darkly, thickly, slowly. This is some visual imagery of the beatings that happened to Emmett Till. This is very important because she's starting to realize just how serious the events that occurred that night really were. We also have a little bit of gustatory imagery with the courtroom Coca-Cola, the courtroom beer. And this is just important to note because this Mississippi mother starts to relive the event, relive the fact that they were serving beer at a courtroom, which would be very odd for Mississippi, just showing how formal the courtroom was and how they really weren't looking to punish this Mississippi mother's husband. Also, we have this very, very, very interesting idea of decapitated exclamation points in that other woman's eyes. So, other woman's eyes is, of course, capitalized, and this is Emmett Till's mother, which is Mamie Till, or Mamie Till, excuse me, and just the idea of decapitated exclamation points. So at one time, an exclamation point is used to show anger, urgency, excitement, anything like that. But we could assume, since she had just lost her boy, she was very angry, both angry at herself and angry at what happened. Angry at herself because she let her boy go down into the South, but also angry at what happened because it's not right for a boy to be killed over any of that. So they're decapitated because at one point she was angry, but now it's just very somber. When you decapitate an exclamation point, of course, it becomes a period, and that's just kind of the end. Nothing really happens after a period. So it's just kind of show like the end of her emotions. Something that's very interesting is there's a little bit of figurative language at the end. Brooks employs a metaphor, because right here we have her hatred bursts into a glorious flower, and then that flower would be a magnolia. So what's very interesting is that the magnolia is the state flower of Mississippi. So how I interpreted this specific point is the fact that her hatred bursts into a glorious flower, which that glorious flower happens to be the state flower of Mississippi. And of course, that flower is symbolizing Mississippi and the culture of Mississippi. And that's the idea that even though throughout this entire poem, it's kind of a realization of what's going on. She actually goes back to loving her husband and realizing that what he did was right, even though throughout the entire poem, she's slowly degrading into realizing how wrong it was. So why Brooks did this was she wanted to show that even though this mother may disagree, that the culture of the South kind of prevented her from saying what she thought was right, or what she was doing was correct. Brooks also uses her diction to show this, specifically fairy tale diction. So towards the very top of this excerpt, we have fine prints, no hoof beats, and no flash of shining steel. So the hoof beat, a knight, your knight in shining armor, you have him riding on this horse and wearing a big coat of arms of steel. But she no longer refers to him as the fine prince after this point, because once again you have he pulled her face, his. So she goes from calling him the fine prince to just he. This is very important to note because, like I was saying, the poem slowly is a realization of how she views her husband, and through that diction you can see that at one point she sees him as like a fairy tale hero, but it slowly devolves into just a he. But then towards the end again, you have her realizing that she can't hate her husband just because of the culture of the South. You also have a very loving type diction where you get love and night and intention. So that to me also is very fairy tale, because love and night intention are all reoccurring themes and things that come up very often in fairy tales, like love at night, the intentions of what people do for love. So it's very, very important to note here, because of course he's talking about what went on that night. And finally, Brooks's style that she implores in this, as opposed to any of our other works. So in this one, of course, as you can see, it's very free verse. It's not tied down to anything, which is very different from the majority of her works that she do, which are usually sonnet or have a very similar structure to a sonnet, whether Italian or Shakespearean. So the reason why I think this is important is because she's trying to show urgency here, and by breaking her own convention, she kind of shows that this is different from any of her other works. So in conclusion, my thematic statement is, no matter how much change you want, the culture that you're living in will always win. And like I said, this is shown a lot through specifically the imagery that she uses, as well as some of the figurative language, like specifically the flower of Mississippi.